Hello and welcome to the lockdown interviews. I'm Paul Stainton. While we're all stuck at home, we're interviewing the great and the good in Peterborough, and particularly those who are leading the fight back against the coronavirus. And I'm pleased to say with me today is Caroline Walker. She's the Chief Executive of the NHS Trust that runs Peterborough, Stamford and Hinchingbrooke hospitals. Caroline, thank you for being with us.
Hello, Paul.
This has been an extraordinary few weeks, hasn't it? A couple of months now. Explain to us, if you will, what your life, both personal and professional, has been like over the last 7 weeks or so.
Well, as you can imagine, things haven't been normal. Nothing's normal in hospitals, nothing's normal in home life at the moment, is it, for any of us? So as Chief Executive of 3 hospitals, things are far from normal. We've been managing in full pandemic incident mode now. This is week 7. And getting to grips with everything that this disease and virus has to throw at us, really. It's been intense, it's been difficult, it's been worrying, and very sad at times. But we have coped, and we're getting used to the new world that we live in hospitals, and trying to gear up for what might be ahead of us in the next few months as well, and thinking about the future, as we do in society, think about a life post-lockdown and what that means. So nothing normal, but very much in control of what we're doing, actually.
Yeah, it's a very different environment, isn't it, for you and for the staff that you've got at that hospital. But you're a human being after all. You're not a chief executive. You're not born a chief executive. On a personal level, how difficult has it been for you? Because you're there all the time, I presume, are you?
Yes, we're there every day. We've been managing on a rota 7 days a week as a leadership team. The incident control room that we run at the hospital to manage this period we're in has been running for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week now for 7 weeks. So as an executive team, we've been running like that, dealing with incidents that come up, dealing with questions, queries and things that our staff have to deal with, and dealing with things that get thrown at us on a regular basis from the government, and new things that come to light, be that moving into surge areas or dealing with particular outbreaks in certain areas.
How has your staff coped? How have they risen to the challenge? Because, like you said, there's no obvious end in sight to this. This isn't a day or 2 or a week. This is an ongoing Herculean effort, isn't it? How have they risen to the challenge?
The staff have been amazing. I can't fault any of the staff for anything that they've done. It's been truly scary at times for me as Chief Executive, for our staff. But the vast majority of staff have rose to the challenge that's in front of them, know that we're in the health service to care for people, and we're here to care for people no matter how much pressure that puts on us. We've tried our best to make sure our staff take their breaks, have time off, take all their rest days, and have tried to take a bit of annual leave. But I think as we go into week 7, lots of our staff are tired, but we've got to figure out how we can maintain their health and well-being, as well as care for the patients in this world of COVID and non-COVID patients at the moment, for what appears to be something like many more weeks and months to come.
Did they have the right amount of PPE? Were they ever in danger unnecessarily? Did they have the right kit?
There have been issues of supply on various days, but all of our staff have had all of the amount of equipment that they've needed to care for patients all of the time. I just think our supplies team and our corporate team have had varying levels of worry on a daily basis as we've counted the stock levels that were in the warehouse. And in the supplies department, wondering whether we'll get through the next 3 or 4 days, or whether it will just be 2 days. One of the unsung heroes of this has been our supplies manager, actually, who's managed to get bits of equipment and the right PPE to the right places when we've needed it.
You're Charles Bronson from The Great Escape, almost, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, your staff are highly trained, they're very experienced, they're very loyal, obviously, and, you know, we clap for them every Thursday night because we really appreciate the job they do. But again, they are human beings, aren't they? And they're not used to seeing this amount of death, are they?
No, and that is one of the longer term issues to think about. So some of our areas do sadly have end-of-life patients, but the vast majority of our areas cure patients and send them home. And more of our areas have had to deal with the patients being end of life or having more bereavements than we think. Even in our intensive care department, where we do sadly have deaths on a regular basis, the intensity and the number of deaths is taking its toll on everybody. And one thing that we've had to do, because we've had so many staff affected by the illness or being sent home to shield or isolate, we've had a lot of staff absence. So we have asked staff to work in different areas to what they normally work in, and that's put a strain on people as well. So a surgical nurse might have had to work in a medical ward, or an outpatient nurse might have had to go back and work on a ward, which they might not have done for some years. And staff have been incredibly brilliant at moving and taking on new roles and being redeployed where the peaks of activity have needed them. And I'm thankful that they've done that, actually. You
mentioned you've learned lessons, you're containing it now and working better. Are you prepared for a second wave? Because there are many of us who've not had this disease, and a vaccine looks a long way off. Have you got good prep in place for perhaps a second wave?
Yes. So I think one thing that we've tested ourselves in this first phase is our ability to surge. And one thing that particularly impressed me was our ability to figure out how we quickly tripled the size of our intensive care department overnight, and got geared up for that. We have stepped that back down now, and our COVID intensive care capacity is 3 times as big as normal, but it's not 5 times as big as normal. And we're ready to step back up again if we need to. But currently at the peak levels that we're at and showing a slight reduction, we think we've got enough capacity to surge again. We are gradually, over the next period post-lockdown, going to start bringing more cancer patients in, and more patients that are getting urgent now that weren't urgent 7 weeks ago. And as we do that, we need to do that carefully, understanding that the infection rates might increase again in the society, in the population, and put a pressure on the health service. It's one thing that's been great here in Peterborough is that we started off in week 1 having to send all of our tests and our swabs for infection down to the lab at Hinchingbrooke in Cambridge. And we quickly got our labs here in Peterborough geared up for this particular test, to test for COVID. And once we were testing on site in our own hospital, that meant that we were getting our results within a day. So we could actually cohort our patients and move our patients around. So with hindsight, I wish I was doing that from day 1, and I could have known very quickly which patients had COVID and didn't. And that would have reduced worry levels, because everybody who comes through the front door, we've been treating as possibly having the infection. And until we get the test result, we don't know that they don't have the infection.
What are you most proud of when it comes to looking back at, I know it's an ongoing situation, but when you look back at the last 7 weeks and the way that your hospitals and your staff have dealt with this, what makes you most proud?
At the moment, we are still in the incident, and I don't feel proud of anything at the moment, because there's still people dying in my hospital that I really wish weren't dying, and the things that we've had to do as a country don't make me proud. But I guess within managing the incident, I'm proud that we have coped. Our staff have done wonderful things, and we coped with the peak that came to Peterborough and Cambridge.
There's going to be a new normal, isn't there? The new normal, what will it be? Is this it? I mean, are we ever going to get back to the way we were, do you think, when we go to hospital, Caroline?
Not for a while, I don't think. But my hope is that we get back to a normal where we can identify quickly the patients that have got exposure to this disease and the patients that haven't, and that we can quickly understand the level of infection in the population, so that we can bring patients safely to the hospital. So for a while, the normal will mean we'll have to test every patient who comes to the hospital. But over a while, we'll gradually know whether those patients have infection or have had it or are immune, won't we? But we don't have that information yet. So for a while, we're going to be bringing patients back to the hospital for elective treatments and less urgent treatments. But we're going to have to test them before they come into the hospital. One thing that we've done particularly well at while we've been in this incident is doing video consultations with patients and doing phone calls when we might have called them to an outpatient attendance before. So the new normal will keep that going, and less patients will have to come to the hospital anyway and have the wasted trip of car parking, queuing and waiting in a waiting room.
I'm going to let you get back now because I know you're a very busy lady and you've got a lot of work to do, and really, really appreciate you talking to us and letting the people of Peterborough know just what is going on behind those hospital walls. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. Bye.
That's Caroline Walker, who's the Chief Executive of the Health Trust that runs Peterborough City Hospital, Stamford Hospital and Hinchingbrooke Hospital, and her lockdown interview. Join us again for the next lockdown interview.